You're watching Start to Sold, and this is Emily Page. Today, we are going to talk about how to offer sampling in stores and how this can impact your sales. So if you own an emerging brand, a CPG product, you might have this awesome opportunity to get into stores. Woohoo! The problem is you need to make sure that your product is going to sell when you get there. Your retailer cannot spend time educating consumers as they walk the aisles about your brand new product. So how are you going to sell more? The answer is in-store sampling. And of course, we are going to interview an expert. Chris Ivey is the VP of Strategy and Development at Dragon Spirits Marketing, which is a company that does in-store sampling. Thanks so much for being here, Chris.
Thanks, Emily. I really appreciate it. I'm really excited to be here, and I really love to help brands grow, and that's what I have a passion for. So anything I can do to help you guys out, I'm more than happy to give you my knowledge.
So we are going to take advantage of Chris right now and extract all the knowledge that we can to improve our business and sales, and he's willing to do it. You heard it here. So let's start by asking him the question, like, what is sampling for all of us newbies, and how does it work? Like, what are the different types that are out there?
Awesome. So what sampling is, in its purest form, is basically an activation. An activation is what we call as some sort of touch point for your brand. And a lot of times these samplings are liquid to lips or food to lips, if you will. It's also trade shows, it's events. The word activation is kind of what we use as an all-encompassing sampling terminology, just because each activation could be a little bit different.
So for everyone listening, what he's basically saying is an opportunity for a customer to actually like touch, taste, feel, see your product. And a human is standing there making sure that they're pitching and selling and explaining the product, because packaging artwork, which I'm all about, you guys know me, I'm all about the power of branding and great packaging, but sometimes people are pushing their cart and they're not looking to the left and to the right. They may not see your product. They might feel questions or confusion about it. And having a human there to let you actually taste it, explain it, really makes a big difference. And it can activate a person from a lead into an actual customer. So Chris is describing the fact that they believe that sampling really activates your customer. So they call it activation. So it's pretty
exactly
cool.
Right.
They can do it a million ways. And so what I want to know from Chris, we all want to know, is that when you're actually doing sampling, like, how does this impact your sales? How can it actually pull your sales forward in stores? Like, how?
Awesome. That's a really good question. So we like to call samplings the pull strategy. The push strategy is where the brands, the retailers, they're pushing it, they're getting it on the shelves, and that's a feat in itself. But then once it gets on the shelves, you have to have some way to be able to pull the product off the shelves. And so samplings or activations give you exposure. So those touch points we were talking about, it usually takes 7 or 8 touch points for a customer or a retailer or even a distributor to start feeling comfortable with your brand and with your product in order for them to continue to buy it, purchase it, or continue to be a repeat customer, if you will. Those repeat customers is where you're really going to make your money. Those one-time samples, something like that, it does help, but it's that repeat customer is what you're looking for. And those touch points is what creates that. And then these samplings and activations, they also show the retailer that you're supporting your product. Because if you just put it on the shelf and you're not supporting it, then they just see this dead space. And if you're supporting your product, you're creating a pull system, then they'll be more apt to be able to go recommend your product. Because for us, we're only going to be there for 2, 3, maybe even 6 hours if we're doing 2 tastings in that week, or even out of the month for that matter. But that employee or those retailers, they're going to be there the entire time. And so we have to get them comfortable with your product and with that product knowledge. And those samplings is a great way to do that, because now they're able to eat it, they're able to taste it, they're able to feel it, touch it, and able to hear the story, because the storytelling is definitely a part of it. The other thing it also does is it's a negotiation tool. That is probably the biggest key about all of this. It's a great negotiation tool. So if you're talking to a retailer and they're taking in 1 case, you'll tell them, hey, I will support my product with tastings if you can take in another 2 cases. So now each store, instead of taking 1 case, now they're taking 3. Now you also have enough product for your tastings. And if the tastings are successful, then that store has to replenish those three cases again, and that helps create your revenue engine.
That that last point you just said is, I think, the most powerful out of all of them, because it really helps you to sell product to your retailer. And a retailer, most people who are selling their brand, they imagine themselves getting into retail and they're so excited about that idea. That is the end goal to them. But honestly, getting into a retail store, it could be a huge loss and a liability. It's not necessarily a big win. What's a big win is selling in those stores. Don't just aim to get into Target, aim to sell through Target. And in order to do that, a retailer is taking a big risk by letting your product come onto their store shelf and replace something that's already selling like hotcakes. So to be able to convince them to take your product in, most retailers want to hear these magic words that you're going to help promote the product. You will take a responsibility to make sure that your products are selling in stores. That can look like promotions in store, that can look like discounts, buy one, get one free. It can look like social media ads. But all of those, we all can understand that that's really hard to tangibly measure. But in-store sampling, we can directly measure the impact of letting someone try a cookie and how many sales that we have that day because of that person being there. So this is actually a really powerful negotiation tool for your retailer that they need to hear from you to take on a risky emerging brand. But it's also one of the easiest ways to measure like marketing dollars that you're going to be putting into that retailer to make sure that like, hey, I'm going to invest in this and I'm actually going to get sales.
That's exactly right. You can't rely on the retailers or your distributors to even pull the product off the shelves. The only person you can rely on is yourself. And another way to do it is using a tasting company or using a sampling company for that matter to help make that pull. Because obviously you can't be everywhere at once.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's also a lot of work. I've tried doing it myself, hiring people to do samplings. I've done it myself, being in store. I know I'm a great salesperson, but hiring other people and training them how to really communicate and represent the brand is a ton of work. I don't recommend it to most people, and it's really smart to hire someone else to do it. So let's actually talk about that though, because you guys are experts. Like, what have you seen in terms of people who have been successfully able to do samplings? Like, what does it take for me as a CPG brand owner to succeed in a sampling environment?
That's a great question. And I've been in this business for about 6 years now, and it's this is the formula, if you will. So every time a brand comes here, they have to know their brand story. If they don't know who they are, then it doesn't help us because then we can't tell the story about your brand. There's no emotional attachment that we can make with the consumers. There's no education for us to give to the retailers or even the distributors because we talk to every single step amongst the way. And it's not even just knowing your story. You have to be able to condense that down because no matter what, a tasting company will never, ever, ever be as good as somebody who owns the company. That person that owns the company is going to know that story. But if you're going to tell 2,000 other people, you have to be able to give them a quick elevator pitch, and especially this day and age when everybody's on their phones. When they're on their phones, you have maybe 3 minutes to be able to engage on that person. And you have to be able to tell them a story, the facts about the product, and get them to buy within those 3 minutes. Otherwise, you're going to lose their attention. And so somebody who has that science down is going to be the most successful brands that we have. And honestly, with that elevator pitch, it's always good to even write it down, have it as a written guide, because when you give that to us as a tasting company, we'll be able to give that out to our brand ambassadors, and we'll be able to get them trained up. So that way it's a consistent brand message. So you don't want taster A, taster B, and taster C to have different parts. You want them to be a consistent tasting, whether it's in Texas, Florida, New York, Illinois, it doesn't matter. You want it to be consistent. The next part of this formula is proper inventory management and distribution, because if that's not set up and good to go, if you do a tasting there, and that's great. Let's say we sold out, everything's off the shelves, but now it's not getting refilled, and you have another tasting set up.
What a honestly,
it is like essentially you're wasting money, not only from a tasting standpoint, you're also wasting money for your distribution, and your retailer is also wasting money because that is wasted space, and that is a lot of money to these retailers. So having that distribution set up also makes a difference to them, because if they say like, oh, your XYZ distribution company, we haven't seen them in 2 or 3 weeks. Well, that doesn't do you any good because people can't buy your product if it's not on the shelves. So that's a huge key to part of this. Another one is if you're going to hire a tasting company, you have to have a good culture. You have to have a great culture. you have to have a culture that's going to be sales driven. First off, you don't want somebody just sitting there, just wasting your dimes, if you will. You want somebody that's going to be hustlers, that are going to go out there, tell your story, tell your brand story, and you're going to want somebody that's going to be sales driven. And then after that, the data. The data is probably the most important part about all of this. So after, you want to ask about the recaps, you want to ask about what kind of data are you going to get. That data is what you can take to your retailers and your suppliers, and you can say, hey, we've done 100 tastings here and we've sold this much product, we've moved this much product. And that also helps create another negotiation tool for you. Those negotiation tools is what's going to help continue to center yourself in these markets and go from a DSD program to a planogram program, which is exactly what you're looking for. And then after that, you also want to have a good culture of hiring people, because anybody can hire their brother, their sister, their cousins to go out there and go give out samplings. But you want somebody that's gonna be thoroughly vetted, somebody that you're going to be able to trust, and you have to be able to have a company that understands that sourcing. So that's another key aspect to that. Next is also, the other part of this formula is also the longevity. So again, with those touch points, you may touch a consumer once every 2 or 3 months. So if you only do a tasting program for a month or two, it's not going to do you any good. You want to be able to have a longer campaign. One of our best customers, at least, they've been with us for over 5 years, and they have grown significantly because of what they've been doing. Now they're the number one product in their market because of the consistent tastings, consistent touch points, and amongst the other things that they've been doing as well, because they know that their distributor is also allowed to be able to use tastings as their negotiation tool. So now you have the brand and now you have the distributor working the same negotiation tool for you. And that's where you're able to accelerate yourself. And last but not least, you have to start all of this yourself. I highly recommend doing tastings yourself, going out there, doing these tastings and working it, because it's going to be cheaper for you. And then you're also going to understand the value of what you're getting. Just as Emily mentioned before, she's done it. She's gone through this. She's done these tastings, and it can be a logistical nightmare after a while. And that's where hiring a third party such as ourselves is going to be beneficial to you, because you may have a tasting in 4 different states. It's impossible for you to be there that entire time, even cities for that matter. That's where you'd be able to use us as your boots on the ground.
I think it's funny, Chris, because I remember the first time that I did a tasting, and gosh, do you know what we had to do? Like, so for one thing, we were working in frozen food. So we had to have an oven there. So imagine we had to haul that. Then we had to get the gloves, the knives, the cutting board. We had to get the little cups, the toothpicks. Oh my gosh, I spilled on myself. So I had this like apron that was like smeared onto my t-shirt. I also had to remember the words. I had to plug things in. I had to remember to coordinate them. I had to drive to multiple locations in a week. And I just remember like, just like, this is the look like on my face. If you could just imagine my hair, like up my sweaty forehead, my like dirt all over my shirts from like the spilled things, carrying the boxes from my car all the way to the inside the store, having to try to find the manager who was like in a meeting and waiting for him.
And then tracking them down, then trying to find the right people to get to, where you got to go set up. It can get to be a huge headache.
It's a huge headache. And if you're running a business, it's not necessarily in your best interest to be the person doing it, in the long run. But I do also like that you were really honest that it's a good idea to do it to begin with, because it's not cheap to go out and have sampling. It's not like throwing, money in the water, but it is cheap in terms of saving your time, your stress, having someone who's an expert at managing large events and managing, hourly employees. It's really helpful to have to not worry about these little tiny problems, and you can't always appreciate it until you go and do it yourself.
Oh, I completely agree with you. That's something I also preach to a lot of these other brands too, is what's your time worth? What's the value of your time? Would you rather be sitting in a store for 3 to 6 hours doing these tastings, or would you rather go find more shelf space? The more shelf space is going to be where you're really going to make your money. I would just rather pay somebody like the money that I would need to pay them. It would be like $100, $150, whatever the case is, while I go make like a few $1,000s over here. That's what you want. That's what we're here for.
I agree. And as you grow, like in the beginning, it's great to wear all the hats as an owner, but eventually you want to maximize your time and put your energy where you're going to have the most impact. So I think that's all really great advice. And I think that, that just leads to the next question is like, hey, if someone's listening to this and they say, it's time for me to do sampling, and they wonder how to get a hold of you, Chris, and maybe why would you be the best person to do it? Like, why is your company the best? Could you share how to get a hold of you and why you're the best?
Absolutely. So, like you mentioned earlier, I'm with Dragon Spirits Marketing. So I always recommend going to our website, dragonspiritsmarketing.com. If you want to reach me directly, go just send me an email at sales@dragonspiritsmarketing.com. And whenever you're ready, a lot of times what I'll tell you is if you're looking at market, have a budget in mind, have that ready to go. And usually if it's right around $2,000 or so a month, then that is a really good benchmark point. If it's at least somewhere around there, that's fine. We help people from just one tasting a month to 1,000 tastings a month. We have no contracts. This is and what makes us even better is that we do have an unmatched culture of storytelling, sales, data, and technology. So every single one of our dragons is what we call our brand ambassadors lovingly. Every single one of our dragons, they have to go through their own culture test for Dragon Spirits. If they don't pass it, then they don't even get hired. Then they go through a personalized interview. And then after that, then once they get into our system called the Dragon Engagement Network, which is an in-house technology that we've made, then they actually have to take brand tests if a brand opts into that. That brand test, what that does is that forces them to take a test. And if they don't pass that test with 85 or greater, they actually don't even get to pick up your brand. But let's say I do pick up your brand, and let's say I don't do so hot. Well, we can take away that brand achievement, and then that's a way we are able to filter everybody out. Some people may be really good at selling wine and beer, but they may not be so good at selling CPG, and that's totally fine. It takes all kinds. And then after that, after every single activation you ever get, you always get a report from us. You get pictures of the shelf, you get pictures of the actual activation, you get data from the activation, how many people were there, how many were sold, and then you also get this in an Excel format as well. And you can download that at any time, and that's also where you can take that negotiation tool and distribute it wherever you need to. And what's best is that we cover coast to coast. So anywhere and everywhere you guys need us, we're here for you.
I was just going to ask that. I was like, I wonder, I can already think of so many people to send your way. And it's so important to know that you can handle your different regions. So that's wonderful. And for anyone else who's watching, I know that Chris would be open to a LinkedIn ad. So if you want to talk to him, just become his friend because he's cool. He's got a nice beard. People should know he's great mixologist. So he's great advice on that kind of thing. And he's also an expert dancer, line dancer. So like really, he's the kind of guy you want to take to a party. So be sure to reach out to him on LinkedIn to add him as a friend.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And the dancing, oh geez, that's funny. I was put on the spot for that one. But yeah, I love to meet people. I love to talk to people. And even if you guys just want to call and chat, just say, hey, you seem like a cool guy. I'm always welcome to it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Chris, for sharing your experience and knowledge so that we could do a better job of selling our products and our brands. And we appreciate it. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. For everyone watching, please like and subscribe this video. Like this video and subscribe to this channel if you found it helpful. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments for Chris or for myself so we could talk more about this. And we'll have the links to all of his company as well as his email in the show notes, the bio of the video. Hope you guys have a great day and please sell more.